Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to jump on a quick live because I've been following the conversation of the double homicide of Rob Reiner and his wife out in LA. And there seems to be some confusion about what exactly is going on with the police in regards to searching the scene and waiting on the medical examiner and all the other things that go along with it. So, I'm just going to go through a couple of quick things in regards to this. As you know, I always like to turn these things into a lesson. So here we go. The main question is why a lot of people are asking. Sorry about that. So a lot of people are asking why they are having an issue with waiting for a search warrant. Well, it's pretty simple. First of all, you guys know that the Fourth Amendment protects us in our homes and our personal belongings and everything else that goes along with it. So people are questioning, why is the LAPD waiting on a warrant? The people are dead. There's no more emergency and there's no more this, there's no more that. Well, listen, even murderers have an absolute right to privacy, and they have rights that are protected under the Bill of Rights in the Fourth Amendment specifically. So it's an important aspect that we have to understand. So what happens initially in a crime scene? There is no such thing as a murder scene exception. I'm going to get to the two Supreme Court decisions in a second, but let me just explain exactly what happens first. So you're the police, you get a phone call, and they're saying that there's people dead at the site. The police can enter that residence without a warrant based on one of the exceptions to the search warrant called the emergency exception. Right, there are about 9 of them. There's a whole bunch of exceptions to the search warrant. But anyway, the search warrant exception that you're dealing with at the initial stages of an investigation is an emergency exception. And the emergency exception allows the police to search for additional victims and the perpetrator, right? So they are allowed to do that. And the reason why they're allowed to search for a perpetrator in the home is because it protects the cops themselves at the location. You don't want to be working the crime scene and then somebody jumps out of a closet with a gun or a knife or something like that. So that's on the initial stages. When the police are satisfied that the entire residence or apartment or house or what have you is secure, meaning there are no additional victims and there are no perpetrators, the decision has to be made if a warrant is required. Now, this is generally done by the detective squad bosses, which was what I used to do. So when you arrive at the crime scene, you have to then talk to the detectives, you talk to the people. And listen, since most people are murdered by someone they know, the search warrant is often gotten. And in this case with Rob Reiner, people are questioning, including people, members of the media. I was watching it on Twitter, and I'm like, I'm going to jump on a quick live and try to straighten this out. The warrant is absolutely necessary in this case because the suspect, hey, Bev, thank you for everyone. So the suspect here, the son, if he lives there or he's a part-time resident there, he has an absolute right to privacy at the location. Meaning that anything that the police found in regards to it would be thrown out if they did it so without a warrant. Now, there are two Supreme Court cases, and I guess, you know what? I guess this will be a quiz question starting today. The first case came out in 1978. It's Mincey versus Arizona, Mincey. You can look it up. And basically, the Mincey versus Arizona, the U.S. Supreme Court decided that there is no such thing as a murder scene exception because the police had searched the entire place saying that it was a murder, that these people no longer had a right to privacy, they were dead, they didn't need it, and blah, 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 blah. Well, the Supreme Court said, yeah, no, you're going to have to get a search warrant because the perpetrator lives there and now you have this issue. So that was the first time. That was 1978. Then in 1984, you have Thompson versus Louisiana. Now, Thompson versus Louisiana basically solidified Mincey versus Arizona and said that the police, once the emergency is over, that they have to get a warrant. It's as simple as that. So this is something that has been taught to us for the last 50, 60 years. So it's important that law enforcement follows the rules, right? They have to, and get the warrant that protects all of us and our Fourth Amendment right. There was even a third case, and that was Flippo versus West Virginia. The Flippo versus West Virginia extended the non-murder exception to a place that you rent. That one happened in a cabin in the woods in West Virginia. And the police had searched the place figuring it's just a rental property. Nobody has a right to privacy. So this is why now it extends to rental properties. Like if I guess an Airbnb would be the tradition, would be the new 2025 thing. 1978, those things didn't exist. So an Airbnb, you have an absolute right to privacy while you're there, and hotel rooms. So if you stay at a hotel, you have an absolute right to privacy to that room that you are renting. Excuse me. So it is important that the police not only know the law, but they follow the law. So that is something that is really important. So if you want to do a little homework on it, because I'm going to give you a quiz question anyway. So it's Mincy versus Arizona, it's Thompson versus Louisiana, and it is Flippo versus West Virginia. You should read the stories because they're actually pretty interesting, especially Flippo, because that guy's still alive. He's in jail, of course, for his wife. He still got convicted, but they had other evidence that was thrown out. But the issue that comes down to is they have to wait. Now, that's the first thing that I wanted to address with this Rob Reiner case. The second thing I want to address with the Rob Reiner case is that they're saying it's been 7 hours, 8 hours, the medical examiner still hasn't arrived. Well, that's not unusual. First of all, it's late at night. That's the first thing. But generally, the medical examiner himself or herself doesn't actually show up at the crime scene. They send medical legal investigators. Now, I am sure LA County is a very big county and they have several medical legal investigators. Those are the death investigators like Barbara Butcher, who I've had on this show, Joe Scott Morgan, who I've had on this show. The death investigators get sent out from the coroner medical examiner's offices and they go and they act on behalf of the medical examiner. They are the ones that make the decision if the body is going to go back to the morgue for an autopsy. And that is something that is extremely important. So these jobs are really important. Now, people saying, well, it's been, 7 hours. Where are they? Well, LA is a big county. There could be other homicides or other death investigations that the medical legal investigators are there. They don't just say, oh, we had a double homicide with celebrities. We're going to drop everything on Mrs. Smith here and run over there. No, they don't care who the person is. They don't care what their status is. They have cases, they have caseloads. They are going to do one case at a time. They don't want to make a mistake. So that's the first reason why there could be a delay. The second reason why there could be a delay, of course, is the time. Maybe people aren't scheduled as to work as late and there's less people around, so they have more cases to deal with. And the third thing is maybe the medical examiner himself or herself will show up because they are celebrities. I don't know, right? But here's the other deal. The medical examiner or the medical legal investigator will come to the scene. And I have been at scenes when I was a rookie cop specifically, because they always seem to send you on every what we refer to as DOA cases. And you sit there sometimes for hours. And sometimes it goes on forever and ever. And it's just you and the dead body. That's it. And you're just sitting there in the person's apartment or house waiting for them to show up. And I can tell you something from experience that depending on the day, right? So Sundays during football season, they tend to be a little slower, I always thought. Not that I'm accusing them of watching football games. However, it seems as if they were a little bit slower on the response. But remember, New York City is big, LA is big, traffic, all kinds of stuff. But I'm still gonna put my cards on my bet on the fact that they were currently working other cases. And sometimes those cases can be involved and they require a lot more patience and a lot more expertise in order to make sure that you get the right outcome. So time, folks, is not a factor. It is not a conspiracy that they don't want to show up because it's Rob Reiner and his political beliefs. I'm just watching what's going on, and people are just like, I think people have absolutely lost their minds in certain aspects. The police have a job to do. LAPD it's not like this is their first rodeo. They do these cases all the time. I know there's a lot of people in the room and your guys are asking questions and stuff like that. I'm sorry, I can't see exactly what you're writing on the thing because I can't see anymore. So if there is a major question that you do have, you can always shoot me an email or what have you. I'm also going to be talking about this on my Reddit feed that I just started, Reddit thread that I just started. I saw Becky here. Becky helps me out on that. So it is important. Why is all going on? Yeah, this was an unexpected live, Becky. I just got so aggravated at watching what was going on in X that I figured I would just turn to this because then it's there forever and people can then look it up when they want to. And this was really about the exceptions to the search warrant, No such thing as a murder scene exception, and I'm giving you the sources that require you to look it up if you want to, in order to just read it for yourself if you don't believe me. And I've had people already challenge me on Twitter saying, no, they're dead. They don't have. Oh, God. I mean, in the age of information and everything at your fingertips, I find it really impossible that people won't even look things up, even when you give them the sources. So, those are the two things I really wanted to address: the murder scene exception, that there is no such thing, the lack of a response by the medical examiners, initially in the stage. I'm sure they're there now at this point. I mean, let's see, it's time in Eastern time is 9 o'clock, so it's 6 a.m. over there. I'm sure that the medical examiner and the MLIs have gotten there already, but also the police have to process the scene. They're going to collect the evidence. They're going to do all this stuff, and you try not to disturb the body, right? I don't know the exact procedures for LA, but in New York City, we would wait for the arrival of the medical examiner or the medical legal investigator to do their examination of the body before we start collecting evidence and doing things, because you disturb the scene. It can disturb the outcome of what the medical legal investigator slash ME thinks about what happens at the case. So I'm assuming that LA does something similar. So you just secure the scene. Everybody's, nobody's going into the house, and you just wait. And if you have to wait 10 hours, you have to wait 10 hours. This isn't like television where you solve a case in 45 minutes with 3 commercials. It takes a long time. And it's the fact that people have to wait for those responses. So be it. The last thing I wanted to address on this case, too, is like initially, people were already, saying, oh my God, Rob Reiner's an outspoken political guy and this and that. And then you heard about the knife wounds. And, when the police go to these things, they develop theories, right? They go there and they'll say, how did this happen? What do you think happened? And initially they will come up with, that could be first, depending on if there's visible wounds or not, they would say maybe it's carbon monoxide. And then the second thing they would come up with is murder-suicide. And then the third thing would be homicide. Remember, it's listed as a death investigation always. And the reason why we always stress this with specific police departments themselves using the terms death investigation instead of a homicide or a suicide, because we don't want to fall into that confirmation bias. Meaning, you don't want the police to walk into a scene and say, yep, this looks like a suicide, so it's a suicide. Right? You call it a death investigation. You let evidence prove your theories right, not the other way around, not your theory proving the evidence. And you want to make sure that you have all your I's dotted and T's crossed. And when you use the terms death investigations, you're less likely to fall into that confirmation bias. And it's important. And we want to make sure that the homicide investigations are done properly and done well, because we don't want a miscarriage of justice. Now, in this case, they haven't told us why they have the suspect as the son. And I'm still looking for, before I hopped on, I didn't see it, but it could already been announced, about is he in custody yet? And that's something important. But I did see that the daughter had come over to the house and found her parents that way and called 911. That's how the police actually got there. So initially, people were really running with the conspiracy theories that they were broken into the house and murdered. Well, listen, folks. This neighborhood, I am sure, including the house, is very heavily surveilled, right? There's lots of surveillance cameras here. So they're going to have a lot of information on video, including the comings and goings of the son if he's still not in custody. And, that's pretty much where this is investigations. They're going to be cell phone technology. There's going to be video surveillance, maybe even internet records, all over a dispute, apparently, which, by the way, if you look at statistics, most homicides happen over a dispute, whether it's love, money, or drugs, or a combination of things. There's lots of reasons why, or motives why people will do this. So stay tuned for more. I hope this helps out in regards to why these things go down this way. But all I can tell people is just be patient, and we'll see what happens. So you guys enjoy the day. Thanks for joining me for a quick 15 minutes. Wow, we have over 300 people watching in the room, so I appreciate that. This was totally impromptu. Didn't announce it, so I appreciate you guys coming out, and especially the mods. Thank you very much. And Nightbot is in there too, right? So he's wreaking havoc. So you guys have a great day. Remember, your quiz question is going to be coming up, and it's going to be about the murder scene exception. So if you're doing those quizzes, make sure you do that, all right? You guys have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye now.